All right, welcome back to Rap Soup. I'm Matt. It's Mike and Nick. Today we're talking about 1995, year in review. Could not have been more enjoyable to listen to. What do you guys think about 1995?
Yeah, going through this year, it was just another upgrade from the previous year. You know, we got those 2 or 3 big albums last year that really changed rap, and the momentum kept up, and we got some great albums this year. It was awesome.
Yeah, how many albums did we listen to? Like 20? 19, 20, 24, somewhere between like 19 and 25. And I don't know if there's any bad ones. You know what? I actually didn't like Return to the 36 Chambers by Old Dirty Bastard, but it was also fine. Like, I don't dislike Old Dirty Bastard. I just kind of think that that's kind of overrated. I don't even know if it's highly rated. It's kind of like a pop culture thing, though. You see that album cover everywhere, but I really don't think it's good. It's funny. It's Old Dirty Bastard. But everything else I was really into. Pause here to pull up what we listened to.
Yeah, looking at 1995 compared to the previous years, especially compared to the earlier years, you could tell hip hop is definitely advancing and progressing a lot more as far as like the beats sound. They're getting a lot more modern. I mean, I think they're better, but it's not like necessarily better, but they're just a different sound than we've been hearing for a while, which I'm really into.
Were there any albums that you guys didn't care for?
I don't want to keep harping on ODB, but I love him and people love him and the legend's sick, the lore is sick behind him, but like as far as like just a straight up rapper, he is not on the same level as Wu-Tang or the rest of the Wu-Tang members. So probably that is something I wouldn't listen to again besides a couple songs, but it's legendary, so that's kind of all that matters.
Yeah, I was only able to listen to like 12 albums for this, so I pretty much only listened to the best of the best.
Dude, something I want to say before we go into our favorite ones is Lifestylez of the Poor and Dangerous by Big L. Not my favorite. Super talented rapper, but I don't know, something about it. The content is like a little bit too harsh for me.
It's some of the hardest content we've heard, without a
harsh,
doubt.
dude. Like a lot of rappers say the same shit, but for some reason he sounds genuine to me about it. Like maybe Eminem says some of the same stuff, but like he's not serious. This seemed like hatred, and I just wasn't that into it. Maybe it wasn't, but it sure sounds like it. And I don't know. I think that that's kind of overrated. I'd still give it like a 3 out of 4, maybe a 2, because the rapping is definitely really sick. But I don't know. It's not really for me. But there's so many good albums. Those are really the only ones that stood out to me as like somewhat negative.
Yeah, kind of a positive year.
Super
overall.
Positive year. It's the best one so far. No albums are really like as perfect as Ready to Die and Illmatic, but from the year prior. But there is nothing but sick shit, really. All right, let's talk about our top 5. I think we all agree on the number 1, so let's do 5 through 2.
At number 5, I had Me Against the World by Tupac, another great album by him. It's funny because he was shot before this album, and yet compared to the last 2 that we listened to, he's a lot less yelling. It seems like a lot less aggressive, which you'd think would be the opposite. You'd probably come out harder after you get shot, but I don't know. Number 4, I had Soul Food by Goodie Mobb. No, I don't think any group can have this sick of sounds from their mouth and the beats at the same time. I think they have good lyricism, undeniably, but what they're saying takes a step back to how they're saying it and the sounds that they're saying it over. I was blown away by that. 3, I had 456 by Cool G Rap. I love this album. Always have. For like the last 5 years, I've been a huge fan. It's just some of the best rapping possible. And then number 2, I had Only Built for Cuban Linx by Raekwon. That was just something special. You know, peak Wu-Tang rapping. It hardly gets better, but there is something better.
So at number 5, I had Only Built for Cuban Linx by Raekwon, and I'm going to say it's also by Ghostface Killah because there's only 3 songs that he's not on. Number 4, I had Tupac, Me Against the World. I know last year I said that Regulate might be the smoothest album of all time, but I think it might have been immediately beaten by Me Against the World. The production on that album is unbelievably smooth. Number 3, I had 456 by Cool G Rap. Like Mike said, it's some of the best rapping, some of the best storytelling. Just Cool G Rap was on another level in 1995. Number 2, I had Soul Food by Goodie Mobb. That album, like what they're saying, I don't know, it kind of in the same vein that Illmatic put me in New York while listening. Soul Food kind of put me in Atlanta. Not saying that it's even close to as good as Illmatic is, but that's just how I felt while listening to that album.
Yeah, all our top 5s are pretty similar. My number 5 is tough because I kind of have to leave out one, which I think later, odds are, it switches. But as of right now, my number 5, couldn't be more into it, Liquid Swords by GZA. I don't know why I necessarily like it more than Only Built for Cuban Linx at the moment. But, dude, just the theme of it, it's just like, it hits me harder for some reason. From Shadowboxing, Living in the World Today, Cold World is my favorite song on there. I don't know, dude. I couldn't be more into Liquid Swords right now. And I wanted to pull up this quote from him real quick. GZA said about Liquid Swords, Only Built for Cuban Linx came out in August of 95. And then Liquid Swords was the next one that RZA worked on that came out in November of 95. And he said, I'm on a different level trying to be cinematic. Like that shit in Kill a Hill where the kid gets his leg cut to hide the dope. That shit really happened, but I'm trying to make it more visual. Liquid Swords is a concept of being lyrically sharp, flowing like liquid metal. Mercury, you know? It comes from this flick, Legend of the Liquid Sword, where people would get their head cut off because it would still be on their shoulders. No one else would notice because the sword was so sharp. Wu-Tang is a sword style, and this here is the sharpest. I'd rather slip on pavement than slip on my tongue.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Dude,
how
that
sick
is a
that?
quote.
Yeah, dude. And when I was I had to listen to Liquid Swords like 5 times in a row before I went into any of the other albums because it just hit me so hard that like I've been listening to it for a few years or whatever, but for some reason it just hit me really hard this time. And God, to me it's visual. Like Cold World, for some reason I could just like lock in and picture everything he's saying. Dude, it's exactly what he just said there. That's my number 5. I'm giving it a 4 out of 4, but it is possible that Only Built for Cuban Linx moves into that spot. Like they switch 6 and 5, whatever. But my number 4 is 456 by Cool G Rap. Same as they said, really sick. Number 3, I'm going to have to go with Soul Food by Goodie Mobb. And then number 2, I think I'm putting Me Against the World by Tupac. As of last week when we listened to all this stuff, that's just kind of how they hit.
As you can see, we have very similar top 4, but for one of the few years, we all agree on number 1. Number 1, up until this point, 1990 through 1995, the album we're about to say, probably the 3rd best album we've heard. Everyone here has been into it at points in their life. None of us realized the greatness and how exceptional it was until recently. We've been talking in our group chat the whole week, just, I can't believe this is this sick. This is the sickest shit ever. It's so funny. I'm like texting people, like, you have to listen to this album in full right now. And they all have. And everyone has came back with positive reviews. That album is The Infamous by Mobb Deep.
Yeah, dude, I've been listening to this since like 8th grade, 7th grade or something when I realized that Shook One's in 8 Mile when he, in the final rap battle. That's kind of how I found out about it. Remember listening to it on YouTube, and then it was fine. Like I was into Shook One's Part 2. Didn't really listen to the album until later in like high school and then college, but it hit really hard this week. Dude, of course it's always good. But after you spend 6 weeks straight of listening to nothing but albums from 1990 through 1994, and then you get to 1995 and it's The Infamous, it's perfect. So far, it is 100% up to this point top 3 albums of the 90s. And I'm really excited for 1996 when we listen to Hell on Earth, because I've never listened to that in full. But The Infamous is as perfect and as classic as a rap album could get, in my opinion. There's not a single skip on it, literally not a single skip. And I can't believe that Havoc produced pretty much the whole thing besides a few Q-Tip songs. What a talented guy. And they're really good lyricists. And I don't know, the whole thing is just eerie. There's a couple songs that are a little bit brighter, like Up North Trip, even though they're talking about going up north as like a punishment or to get away from bad shit. But I love it. It's one of my favorite albums ever, probably.
Couldn't agree more. It's one of the first real, and definitely the first really, really good, like, crime album. Like, not even not specifically focused on drug dealing or murder or anything, but just like the life of criminals and like what they're up to, what they're worried about, what they're thinking. And like you said, Matt, the beats are like eerie, grimy. It's just everything about the album fits so perfectly, and it feels like they got the exact point across that they wanted to get. They made the exact album they wanted to make. And yeah, it's probably in my top 10 albums of all time. I could not think it's a better album.
Couldn't be better.
It's really interesting to see how they progressed since 1993 on their Juvenile Hell album. I remember in the video I said it was like school rap. I mean, I didn't think it was bad. I just knew that they were so much better later on that like it didn't impress me. And to see that from that album jumping to this album, blown away. Shout out to them for rare people improve that much from one album to another one. Except like when their first album's like amazing, then it makes sense. But the jump was huge.
Huge. What are your guys' top 3 tracks off the Infamous?
For me, the top 2 are definitely, I think, tied. I got Survival of the Fittest and Shook Ones. They're very similar sounding songs to me. I don't really know if I could pick one over the other, but those 2 songs are on opposite ends of the album. Both of them are just so good. And then number 3, I don't know. It could literally be any song on here, but if I had to pick one right now, I'm probably going to go Trife Life.
I'm with Nick. I think not with Trife Life. I think number 3 would be Eye for an Eye. Number 2 would be Survival of the Fittest. And I know it's the most popular and everyone knows it, but I still think Shook Ones is as good as a rap song can be. So that has to be my number 1.
All right, yeah. Like Nick said, it's like impossible to pick because every single song is essentially perfect. But at the moment, my top 3 are, my number 3 is Cradle to the Grave. My number 2 is Up North Trip. And my favorite is Survival of the Fittest. But like Mike said, Eye for an Eye is amazing. Trife Life is amazing. QU Hectic is sick. The Start of Your Ending. Like every single song. Is amazing.
Dude,
it's a perfect album. It's across the board amazing. There's not a single bad song.
It's one of the only albums that I literally want to sit and listen to every single word that they're saying for the entire length of it.
I can't stop listening to it, dude. We started listening to the 1996 albums, and I still like have to take a break and go back to it because I'm not over it yet. And I've known what it is for like 15 years, but for some reason, after, like I said earlier, like you listen to 70 plus albums from the early 90s, and then you get to the mid 90s, and it's this, and you just have a greater appreciation for it than before.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to give out 2 honorable mentions before we go. The first one is Da Shinin' by Smif-N-Wessun. I've never listened to that album before. I actually never even heard of Smif-N-Wessun before.
It's amazing.
But that album was so good. Really tough to keep it out of my top 5. Those guys are incredible. Yeah, and the second one is Do You Want More by The Roots. I didn't think it was as good as Organics, but it kind of gave me Tribe Called Quest vibes, but with better rapping, because Black Thought is amazing. And I'm really looking forward to how The Roots progress in the next few years, because we're in for some really good albums.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah, 1996. I have 3 shout outs I want to give. Nick said one of them, so I'm going to throw another one in there. I really liked Lacabincalifornia by the Pharcyde way more than their prior album. It was I gave it a 4 out of 4. I thought it was amazing. Just not quite as, for me, as my top 5 that I said. You can't forget East 1999 Eternal, but that wasn't even my favorite. I really want to give an honorable mention to Mystic Styles by 3-6 Mafia. That was so weird. It was so different than everything else before it. Been listening to 3-6 Mafia since I was a little kid, but only their 2000s shit. Hearing like their first like album, it was really interesting. I also really like Do or Die by AZ. That was pretty good. And also, I don't know if you guys listen to this, but you should revisit On Top of the World by 8Ball and MJG. That was sick. Those are other ones I wanted to mention, but honestly, none really came close to the top 5, except one that I left off, which was only built for Cuban Linx.
So as you can see, we really think highly of the infamous. Going into this, we knew it was going to be one of the best, just previous listens and just the legend behind it. But to have it as a unanimous number 1, which hasn't came around that often on these lists, kind of a surprise, but 100% deserving. It gets crowned as the best album of 1995, deservingly so all day. I'd love to know what you guys thought of it. Do you like it? Do you think it's overrated? Do you only know it because 8 Mile? Who knows? But thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell us something about yourself. Thank you.